black-gloved human hand injects a substance into an egg yolk, and after a few minutes, the egg splits, producing an identical egg. At the same time, a star for Oscar winner Elizabeth Sparkle is unveiled on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Time passes, the star fades, and soon Sparkle's name no longer shines as brightly. She now hosts a TV exercise show. Despite her advanced age, the woman is physically fit and looks very good. However, one day she goes to the bathroom, and seeing that the women's room is out of order, she enters the men's room. Inside the booth, she hears the voice of the show's producer, Harvey, saying that Elizabeth is outdated and that the show needs a young, beautiful girl. It is time for Sparkle to retire. After all, her Oscar is at the dawn of cinematography, and it is time to make way for the younger generation. Elizabeth goes to lunch with the producer, where he laughingly announces her retirement and leaves with a friend. The woman sees a fly in her wine glass and feels helpless as well. On her way home, the actress is distracted by workers removing her billboard and gets into an accident. At the hospital, the doctor recognizes a star and compliments her, but the woman begins to cry because all her fame is now behind her. Embarrassed, the doctor says goodbye and leaves. However, a young nurse suddenly begins examining Elizabeth's back, muttering that she is perfect for the experiment. Before leaving, he slips a flash drive into her pocket with an ad for a product called Substance. Elizabeth reads the product when an older man calls her. It turns out to be her old classmate, Fred. He is happy to see her and offers to meet her and reminisce about their youth. Fred writes his phone number on a random piece of paper and, after soaking it in the pond, gives it to Elizabeth, who pretends to be happy to see her old friend. In reality, she falls into a deep depression, especially after she finds a bouquet of flowers at home, thanking her for being part of the team all these years. Rereading the word, Elizabeth inserts the flash drive into the TV and sees an ad for a substance whose injection unlocks her DNA and starts cell division, creating another copy of herself. This is the substance, and the person is the Matrix. While they are two different personalities, they are still the same person, just an improved version that will be younger, more beautiful, and more perfect. Both personalities must exist in symbiosis and switch every 7 days, always remembering that they are one entity. Elizabeth goes to a bar and sees happy couples and realizes her loneliness. She returns home and, after long thoughts and memories, calls the number provided and asks for the substance. She is given a post office box number where she can pick up the product, and the call quickly ends. The woman spends a sleepless night, and in the morning, she sees an advertisement in the newspaper looking for candidates to replace her as host of the show. At the same time, there's a letter in the mail with a card and the post office box number for the substance. Elizabeth resolutely heads out to pick up the package. Using the card, she opens a hidden door in an old building and finds a storage unit with a package. Waiting for her at home, Elizabeth opens a box. All the components of the substance are neatly packed in bags and labeled as the activator, the fixer, the other you, the key, food for the Matrix, food for your other. The activator needs to be used only once, but the fixer must be administered daily and is taken from the cells of the Matrix. Most importantly, the couple must switch places every 7 days without exception and must always remember that they are one entity. In the morning, Elizabeth spends a long time looking at herself in the mirror, noticing signs of aging. Eventually, she injects herself with the previous activator and then feels unbearable pain. The woman falls to the floor, writhing in pain as her back splits, and from within her younger version appears. This new personality gradually comes to her senses, and when she looks in the mirror, she sees a reflection of a very young and beautiful girl. For a while, she enjoys her new state, but then she notices Elizabeth's body. First, the girl cleans it, stitches up the terrible tear in her back. Then she goes to bed. In the morning, the girl takes a shower and suddenly feels sick. She pulls out special syringes and injects herself with a stabilizer taken from the spine of the unconscious Matrix. Then she goes to the living room, delighted with her new, youthful, and strong body. Later, the girl goes to a casting call, buying a seductive swimsuit on the way. She takes the name Sue and has an amazing effect on the producer's assistants and eventually on Harvey himself. Sue chooses to replace Elizabeth as the host of the show. Although the girl immediately warns that she will be leaving every 7 days to care for her sick mother, this completely wins Harvey over, as the audience will certainly love him. Sue begins to enjoy the fame that once belonged to the original. However, the week passes quickly, and it is time for a switch. Sue attaches special tubes to her arms, allowing the substance to flow through them. Elizabeth soon regains consciousness, while Sue's body slips into a coma. The woman cleans herself up and goes to the television studio, where Harvey presents her with a gift from the crew. Upon returning home, Elizabeth marks the day she can be herself on her calendar. Sue spends all her time at home. At the end of the week, she received a letter about a new batch of the material being delivered to her mailbox. 7 days later, they switch roles again. Sue enjoys her new life, appearing in commercials and reveling in her growing popularity. But one day, she starts thinking about the Matrix body and sets up a secret room in the bathroom. Just as she is finished, her neighbor knocks on the door, complaining about the noise of the equipment. When he sees Sue, the man is immediately taken with her and offers to help him. But the girl closes the door and hides Elizabeth's body in the secret room, then replaces her picture on the wall with her own. Sue's show is a huge success, with ratings rising, much to producer delight. The girl begins to make new friends and attend parties one evening. She brings a young man home, but when things get intimate, she suddenly feels sick and remembers that it is time to switch. Sue rushes to the secret room and performs an additional installation. She spends the night with the young man and later switches roles with Elizabeth as necessary. When Elizabeth wakes up, she finds the living room in disarray, her hands twisted by gout. Struggling to pull herself together, she calls the number of the substance provider, but they tell her that the changes are irreversible and remind her not to forget that they are one. Elizabeth tidies up the apartment and then sees a recording of Sue's new show on TV. She is forced to admit that Sue is very pretty. Later, she hears the neighbor ask Sue out on a date, but she does not answer the door. She then receives a new batch of the substance. On her way out, she stops at a cafe where an old man starts a conversation, lamenting that 7 days is too long to wait to get back into the body. He drops his cards, and among them, Elizabeth sees a card that matches her substance card. She recognizes a young nurse who advised her to try it in his eyes. He knows that with each passing moment, it becomes harder to remember that you deserve the right to exist. Soon, the second part will literally start to consume her. Elizabeth runs home, bumping into Sue's boyfriend, who of course does not recognize her. But this makes her remember Fred. She dials his number, and her cheerful classmate arranges a meeting at a coffee shop. Elizabeth dresses up, puts on makeup, and hides her hands under gloves. But unexpectedly, she sees a billboard with Sue's picture on it. She is immediately disappointed, changes her makeup, and then wipes it off completely. She cries, "Please drop a like," takes off her dress and stays home, ignoring Fred's constant calls, and overeat to cope with her nervousness and insecurities. When it's Sue's turn again, she steps onto the set and begins the show. However, during rehearsals, she suddenly feels something protruding under the skin of her buttocks. The girl immediately stops filming, and while the puzzled cameraman tries to understand what he just filmed, she runs to the bathroom, where she finds a lump on her buttocks and a fried chicken leg sticking out of her navel. She realizes that while she leads an active life, Elizabeth is eating too much at home. Sue is furious. She complains to production manager, but all she hears in return is that they are one. Weeks pass. One day, Sue urgently calls Harvey to announce that she will be the new host of the New Year's Eve show, the pinnacle of her career. Sue is delighted, but now she abuses a fixative more and more, causing Elizabeth's body to age rapidly. When Elizabeth wakes up again, she finds herself old and frail, her joints stiff and her hair almost entirely gray. The woman calls the operator of the material, who suggests ending the experiment, but there is no way to restore her condition now. She tries to convince herself to stop the experiment, but she cannot give up such a beautiful second version of herself, even though her knees are barely functioning. She remembers Harvey, gift that turns out to be a cookbook, and Elizabeth immerses herself in learning new recipes with renewed energy, while Sue continues to dominate the television screens. One day, Elizabeth hears Sue laughing at her, mocking the aging star, which prompts her to eat even more. Elizabeth becomes so angry that she vows to end the experiment. Switch day comes, and once again, Sue finds a room full of leftover food and empty bottles. In order to gain independence and take advantage of the Matrix's helplessness, Sue stockpiles a fixative for 3 months. However, the day before the show is to air, the fixative runs out. Sue calls the supplier to ask for more, but he says Elizabeth is the only source, and they must switch to replenish the supply. There is simply no other choice. Sue, semi-conscious, begins to switch. Her boyfriend hears strange noises coming from the bathroom, but the girl does not open the door, as inside is a hideous bald woman with a deformed hump. Finally, she screams at him, and he runs away. Elizabeth, now a horrific creature, calls a material operator and begs to end the experiment. She then heads for the final push. Back at home, she drags Sue's body into the living room and prepares to inject her with serum that will kill her duplicate. With the syringe ready, she looks around, staring at the pictures of Sue for a long time. She realizes that she cannot kill her younger duplicate. Elizabeth brings Sue back to consciousness. When she sees the half-empty syringe and realizes what Elizabeth was up to, Sue becomes enraged and beats Matrix to death. Afterwards, she goes to the New Year's Eve parade. She puts on a gorgeous dress, but suddenly Sue feels sick and runs to the bathroom. It turns out that with the death of Matrix, Sue's body has begun to deteriorate rapidly. First, her teeth fall out, making it impossible for her to smile at patrons, which Harvey so desperately wants. Then one of her nails falls off, and her ear falls off. In a panic, Sue rushes home, where she injects herself with the last of the tonic, hoping to create a new version of herself. Instead, a monstrous hybrid of both versions, Eliza and Sue, is born. The monster remembers her experience and attempts to beautify herself by wearing a homemade Elizabeth dress and mask before heading to the show. When she arrives at Television Center, she steps on stage and speaks to the audience, but her mask falls off. Screams of horror fill the auditorium, and people call her the monster. The audience flees in panic, and a man decapitates Eliza Sue, after which her mutilated body floods the entire auditorium with blood. What is left of Eliza, Sue runs out of the studio, into the street, and disintegrates into entrails. Elizabeth's original face manages to crawl to the actress's star on the Walk of Fame, where it looks up, smiles, and dissolves. The next morning, the remaining pool of blood is cleaned, erasing the actress's memory. The film dissects and forcing viewers to reflect on what it means to be yourself and how important it is to accept who you are. Please drop a like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.